Hi, and welcome back to another Best Anime Recaps video. Today I will be explaining the movie Vampire Hunter, D Bloodlust. Hope you enjoy. A sinister-looking carriage glides through the streets in the middle of the night. Its presence is felt as metal crosses age, flowers wilt, flowing water freezes, and stray dogs flee in terror. Charlotte is lying in bed when her room is invaded and she is taken by this entity with no reflection. Vampires dominate the night in this post-apocalyptic future, but their numbers are diminishing, with large bounties put on them. A new kind of bounty hunter has evolved, and one shines above the others. He is a Dhampir, a half-human, half-vampire hybrid. He was often torn between his two selves. Snipers keeping guard above a dilapidated cathedral confirmed the presence of the Dhampir vampire hunter known simply as D. Charlotte's elder brother, Alan Elborn, introduces himself to D and begins to explain that his sister has been abducted by the vampire noble, Baron Meyer Link. They attempted to follow and rescue Charlotte based on some information, but the search group was slaughtered by terrorists, leaving just a few survivors. He provides D a $10 million advance to discover and rescue her, with a further $10 million to be paid when the assignment is completed. Alan continues, before D can answer, that he has recruited another gang of vampire hunters, the legendary Marcus brothers. The hunter believes it may be too late for Charlotte. Alan becomes upset as a result, but he is interrupted by his father, John Alburn, who apologizes on his behalf. If Charlotte has been transformed, her father asks D to grant her a painless death. Given the high importance of the assignment, the hunter asks for extra money. John agrees and increases the final payment to $20 million. An armored vehicle arrives in a neighboring town. A massive hand snatches a drunk local. The man inquires whether he has seen the notorious carriage. The drunk denies seeing it. He raises him up and tilts his neck, revealing bite marks. The native transforms into a blood-sucking monster but is readily dispatched with a silver arrow. The entire town has been turned. The vehicle dazzles them before running them over in order to get away swiftly. They regenerate and chase after the armored truck, attempting to penetrate it while picking off the invaders. The remainder of the vampire villagers erect a massive crucifix in the road, blocking it. The passengers of the vehicle are revealed to be the Marcus brothers, comprised of their leader Borgoff, the monstrous Nolt, the Blade Master Kyle, the feeble and physically bedridden Psychic Grove, and a lady named Layla who has a vendetta against vampires. With their access denied, they are forced to defend themselves against a tiny army of low-level vampires. The hunters effectively put an end to the people's hardship. They are admiring their efforts when they hear someone riding a horse up the hill. Borgoff shoots an arrow at the rider, who turns out to be D. To the amazement of the squad, he catches the arrows. While presenting himself, the leader claps in admiration. Before riding away, he merely says his name. While Borgoff brags about his prowess, Kyle and Note grumble that they simply given him a head start by wiping out the village. Layla detaches a motorbike from the vehicle and races away while they talk. Meanwhile, Hunter D will continue his quest till the sun rises. Because he is half vampire, his parasite partner, Left Hand, alerts him of his vulnerability to the sun. They arrive upon a set of tracks. He enables his sidekick to examine them, resulting in an unseen building known as a resting home. He uses some stones to get around the motion-activated lasers that defend the resting place. Left Hand looks through to assess the situation inside, and as they do so, the sun sets. Mayor begins to awaken. At the same time, Layla makes a beeline towards the resting place, evading lasers with a rocket launcher in hand. The vampire flees as she fires a shot, but it is deflected and returns to her, injuring her. He climbs aboard the carriage just as it enters a tunnel. A struggle between Link and the hunter erupts. The vampire is insistent that Charlotte chose to be with him, but D is suspicious. She screams out to Link, distracting D just as they are going to clash. This offers the vampire an advantage in avoiding the hunter, allowing them to flee. Based on her acts, he begins to suspect that the vampire's words may be true. Back in the resting place, Layla, unconscious and bleeding, Left Hand taunts him about drinking her blood, but he decides to treat her wounds instead. When she screams out for her mother, she awakens to see the half-vampire standing over her. She instantly examines her neck, believing he has bitten her, and discovers that her injuries have been attended to. Her buddies eventually catch up to her as he departs. Borgoff believes that because Mayor Link is being chased by them, he will travel to Barbarossa, a refuge for monsters and demons. Grove, concerned, asks her if her injuries are bothering her since D treated the wound. She requests that he not tell anyone. The vehicle comes to a complete stop. The carriage is seen by the hunters. Borgoff, Note, and Kyle go on an investigation. They attack the carriage only to discover that it is a decoy. In the darkness, they hear the eerie cackle of Shadow Manipulator Benj. He makes fun of them for showing up. As he sneaks through to Nolt's shadow, stabbing it, he tries to counter, but fails, and with his last breath, he urges his brothers to keep their eyes on the shadows. When Borgoff and Kyle turn back, They see that Nolt has been murdered. Following the same line of reasoning, Hunter D arrives at Barbarois. Strange beasts lurk in the shadows, keeping an eye on him as he makes his way to the main entrance. Before the door opens and lets him in, he reveals his name and intent. He is surrounded by additional monsters and mutants on the inside. The chief gives him an audience. D insists that they withdraw their protection of Mayor Link immediately, but the village elder has been paid $100 million to protect the vampire. Naturally, with a payoff like that, he declines. Ben suggests that he, Macria, and Caroline fight since they are the strongest. The elder swiftly dismisses this notion. The Marcus brothers detect the numbers to their disadvantage while spying from a distance. Grove is given a serum that permits him to astral project. He storms in, shooting lasers at the Barbarois as they prepare to attack the place. As Dee pursues, the elder tells the top three to take the carriage out of the area. Grove launches an attack, but his projection is promptly eliminated. Benj traps him in a shadow trap by hurling his ride down a cliff. This allows Team Marcus to join the chase, but Caroline merges with the truck, disabling it and causes them to crash. Borgoff and Kyle fight Benj, killing him and avenging their brother. Dee also escapes the shadow trap with the aid of Left Hand. Kyle and Layla are entrusted with fetching supplies from the nearest town with their transportation out of service. Link reads a letter from Countess Camilla which promises them safe passage to a far-off realm in the heavens. Meanwhile, Dee makes his way to town on foot. The blonde hunter notices him and alerts the local sheriff to his presence. Dampiers are feared and despised by the general public in this world. Dee is flanked by local enforcers as he purchases a new ride from an elderly guy. They attempt to refuse his money and drive him out of town. To everyone's amazement, the old guy rallies to his defense. He recalls his mother protecting him from vampires when he was a youngster. He is more than willing to return the favor. Layla, who is hidden outside the shop, observes everything. Mayor's carriage comes to a halt to rest. Charlotte is missing the sun, so she goes for a walk. Dee confronts her about her choice to flee with a vampire. She explains that she is in love with Mayor and would rather die than be apart from him. Layla shuts her off and smacks her for the chaos she's caused. She holds Charlotte at gunpoint, and when she attempts to steal the reward from Dee, Caroline ambushes her as Macaira collects the valuable Charlotte. Caroline attempts to fend off Dee while he suffers from heat exhaustion. He succeeds in decapitating her, but he collapses due to overexposure to the sun. Layla buries him to cool him down. When the resurrected Caroline confronts the blonde hunter, she gets lucky when a convenient lightning strike kills the mutant instantaneously. The storm compels her to seek refuge with her competition, and they share a touching moment when Layla explains that vampires murdered her family, leaving her an orphan. To avenge her parents, she joined the Marcus brothers. They strike a deal to visit each other's graves depending on who dies first. She admits that since Dampiers do not age, it is possible that Dee will pay her a visit. Meanwhile, the fugitive pair is pursued by the Marcus brothers to a bridge. They plant bombs in the carriage, and as Kyle pulls Charlotte from the cabin, Macaira uses his heightened senses to locate the bombs. After being struck by Borgoff, he leaps off the bridge. Mayor comes out even though the sun hasn't set because he has no one to safeguard his love. As the sun slowly sets him ablaze, Charlotte breaks free and hugs him. The brothers laugh and make light of the situation. Macaira arrives from beneath the bridge and murders Kyle. He slashes Borgoff's face. Before plunging from the bridge, the seasoned hunter detonates the remaining devices. The mutant deploys the bridge explosives and throws them into the sea. They explode as soon as Borgoff enters the water, but he manages to survive. Link, who is suffering from more than just sunburn, fights the desire to swallow Charlotte's blood. The unusual pair then make their way to Camilla's palace where she awaits them. Meanwhile, Macaira remains behind to confront Dee, but is eventually killed by him. Before he dies, he admits that Camilla hired the Barbarois to guard them. The castle was infiltrated by all of the surviving hunters. The Countess was slain by the Vampire King, Dee's father, and imprisoned in the castle, as revealed by Left Hand. The place is haunted by her ghost. Carmilla betrays the pair by momentarily killing Mayor after making them feel at ease. To resurrect herself, she disguises herself as Mayor and bites Charlotte, absorbing her blood. She haunts the hunters with hallucinations. Dee, who is unaffected, saves Layla from her hallucinations of her horrible upbringing. Unfortunately, Borgoff gets duped by his brother's apparitions and is converted into a vampire. He is holding Layla prisoner. Grove reappears and saves her by sacrificing himself in order to assassinate the now vampiric gang boss. When confronted with Camilla's spirit, Dee destroys it while annihilating her physical body in order to reawaken Meyer. With Camilla gone, the castle begins to disintegrate. When Dee and Link have their ultimate battle, the hunter triumphs over the vampire. Charlotte is killed by the bite, her ring tossed to Dee and Meyer by Layla. Mayer's life is spared, and Dee and Layla flee the castle. She keeps the ring as evidence for her father and brother. With Charlotte in hand, Mayer uses the castle spaceship to depart for the city in the night. Dee and Layla look on, with Layla wishing the vampire success. Years later, a funeral is held for Layla, with a large crowd attending. Among the crowd is Layla's granddaughter, who recognizes Dee from a distance and invites him to spend time with her family. but he kindly refuses. Dee reveals he is glad Layla was wrong about nobody being at her funeral and leaves contentedly. The end. Thanks for watching and stay safe.